When you get to this time of the year, this is what you sweat in the summer for. This is why you're in the weight room at 5:30 in the morning. It's for an opportunity like this that's coming up.
Tonight's Chuck Smith Show, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service, is also brought to you by our loyal sponsors. Charlie's Bar and Restaurant, located at 800 Shore Road in Summers Point. Meet your friends at Charlie's at the shore since '44. Chico & Sons Sub Shop, located at 1620 Tilton Road, Northfield. Choose the #1 sub shop in South Jersey. And the Docks Place, located at 646 Bay Avenue in Summers Point. Book your dinner reservations now at 609-926-0404. Thank you for your support of Mainland Regional Football.
But when you have a solid program, a lot of that can take over what an individual might do. Before he releases the ball, he takes a shot right as he releases it here. And for him to stand in there in the face of that, and that's just the confidence that he has. And like I found myself just trying to catch my breath for a bit because of the excitement and just the pressure of that moment. This is a game that the kids, you live for.
This is the Chuck Smith Show on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. Now, here's Coach Smith and your host, Nick Kosko.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me, as he is every week, is Mainland head coach Chuck Smith. Coach, good to talk to you again. I can't believe we're already here already. The regular season finale on tap on Friday, Mainland versus Delsea. Time has certainly flown by here this 2025 season.
Yeah, Nick, it always does. It seems every year it gets faster and faster. You know, it seems like you're just yesterday out there sweating in the middle of the summer on the field, and now you're, end of October and the season's wrapping up this week.
Yeah, playoffs are just around the corner, so we'll get into all that stuff, in terms of playoff implications. Obviously, a big matchup with Delsea on Friday, but first we'll recap last Friday. Tough one against Winslow. Again, we know that they're the top public school in the state, defending Group 4 state champions, and looking like they might be able to do it again. 41-6 loss. You guys actually, were able to score those first two drives and build a 6-0 lead after two Nate Cashy field goals. But as you talked to me about it pre-show, Winslow's speed and athleticism and just their passing attack kind of took over. What were your main takeaways, maybe some positive ones as well, from this game on Friday?
Yeah, our game plan was to hold on to the football, score some points, do some different things on defense, and it worked for a quarter. And then there were three more quarters.
Yeah.
So, the kids, we got the opening kickoff, drove down. Nate Cashy hit a field goal. They turned it over on downs. We drove down field again, kicked another field goal. But field goals aren't going to be a team like Winslow. They just have too much. And it's hats off to them. They just have players across the board at every position. I mean, their D-line, we've played teams that are much bigger than them size-wise this year. But these guys play football, man. They bring it to you. Their D-line did a tremendous job of coming across the ball and stuffing our offense. The speed that they have at all their positions, swarming to the football. Offensively, they do a great job of pass protection. That's their thing. And, they were able to air it out, and they really hit us hard that second quarter. At halftime, it was 27-6 all of a sudden. And you're hanging on for dear life. But, they're just a team that's at a different level. We played them in the semifinals a couple years ago, and we're fortunate enough to win. They went undefeated, I believe, last year and won the state championship, and it looks like they're on their way to win another state championship this year. But a great team, But the thing I took away from our team was, they battled the whole game. Nobody quit. It was easy when all of a sudden the score gets tilted that one direction of that happening. But the guys hung in there, clung in there, and fought, and that's all you can ask for. We knew we were going against a team that was decidedly better than us, but you got to fight the fight and see what happens. But, they were just at a different level than us on that Friday night.
Yeah, that's why you play the game. So you guys are 4-4 on the season. Winslow improved to 6-2, but hey, a big-time matchup this Friday against Delsea. It's senior night for you guys. Last regular season home game at the Corral with the playoffs on tap. And as we were talking ahead of the show, the playoff implications for this game are pretty big. There's a big chance that you might play Delsea this week and then face them again, and as they come right back to Linwood the very next this week, depending upon how the brackets end up shaking out, obviously, with PowerPoints and the northering numbers and all that good stuff. Math that's well above our heads, obviously. So when we look at Delsea this coming week, you see what from your team? It's senior night. This is pretty much the last go round for a pretty established senior class at Mainland. We'll get into specifics as well, but after a loss like that on Friday, where it's like, we play one of the best teams overall in the state. Now we have to turn around here for a big one where we might see this team 2 weeks in a row. What was it like going into the weekend and obviously the first half of the week of practice?
Yeah, I gave the kids off on the weekend, just to kind of recharge the batteries and refocus because this is the big stretch coming up here. Yeah. Like I said a few weeks ago, every game is kind of like a playoff game at this point in the season. And this game, in essence, is a playoff game as you're going there for seeding and home field advantage in the playoff game, especially if we could play them again. But it's a big week for us. We were celebrating our seniors on Friday night at the Mustang Corral with the band, the cheer, and of course the football team. We had a great senior dinner last night. We have an annual tradition that our boosters sponsors down at Doc's Restaurant in Summers Point. And a real nice, intimate affair with just the seniors and their parents and the coaches. And it was really nice. It's hard to believe that these guys are coming to the end of their high school careers. It seems like they've been with us forever because so many of them have played such meaningful minutes since the day they stepped on campus 4 years ago. And like I was telling the parents last night, this group has accolades that no other group has ever met over the history of Mainland football. They've won the most games over a 4-year period, 2 division championships, 3 semifinal appearances, 3 straight sectional championships, 2 state championship appearances, and a state championship undefeated team. That's a lot, over a 4-year period. Not many public schools have done that ever. I'm really proud of the kids and what they've done in their careers. And there's nothing more than we want as a coaching staff and as our community at Mainland than to watch these guys go out as winners. Our first goal is to beat Delsea this Friday night. It's a huge night. The place is going to be packed. We know what's at stake, and Delsea's always a tough team. I mean, try to remind the kids about last year's game, and I think they had the ball for 40 of the 48 minutes, and we were losing with a minute 30-something on the clock at our own, 25-yard line, and we went down the field, scored a game-tying touchdown, and then won the game in overtime. We're lucky to win that. And that had a big boost for our playoffs last year just to bump us up a little bit. And this game is a big playoff game this week. Like you said, the playoff implications of who wins, who's going to play at home the following week. We're both right there in the PowerPoints 4 and 5 right now. And it looks like it's going to stay that way kind of. But Delsea's Delsea. You look at certain programs in South Jersey and they have a history about them. And Delsea has had that, all those years with John Oberg as the head coach, and then Sal Marchese as the head coach, and the multiple championships that they've won. And they're always one of those teams that's a very physical team, very strong up front, both sides of the ball. They love to control the clock, one of those old school kind of wing tee option type teams that just want to grind it out. And if they get the lead on you, good luck trying to catch up because they could take the ball and take it for 8 to 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned that game last year. Delsea got hot at the end of the season. I believe they only had 2 regular season wins, but were able to get into the playoffs last season. And, you mentioned that game last year, 21-14. You guys went in overtime, had big implications. It kind of boosted you guys a little bit. And then they went on a run, and then sure enough, there was almost a state semifinal rematch between the two of you. You guys got Somerville instead, which ended up being an epic win for you guys. But it just goes to show you this team, if they get hot at the right time, they can make a lot of things happen. So knowing that you had a game like that with them last year, a lot of players are back from last year's roster. Of course, Jason Volpe still at the head coaching spot for the Crusaders. They're coming off a win last week. And in the back of your head, and I assume I know the answer already, but knowing that you have them this week and there is a pretty good chance, especially if you guys do win, you will play them again. Same exact team, same location, just about 6 days later. Is that in the back of your head, the staff's head, the player's head, where it's like, I'm not going to say we don't want to show too much, but do you think about that at all in terms of the game plan this week?
It enters your head to a degree, but at the same time, we got to win this game.
Yeah.
So we got to do whatever it takes to win this game and then worry about the following week, And that's kind of like the mentality I have and the coaches have and the kids have. Like, we got to do whatever it takes this week to win And then, hopefully we're fortunate enough to win, and whatever we have to make in adjustments or things like that through schemes or personnel, whatever, we'll do that after that for the next time, but we just got to worry about what's coming up Friday night.
As far as the individual players are concerned over at Delsea, Emil Gebhard, he's their quarterback, 11 total touchdowns. You already referenced their wing T offense, and knowing that you guys do run that, so it's something that you are familiar with, but they're very effective at it. He's got, like I just said, 11 total touchdowns this year. Their running back, Adrian Shepard, also runs the football a lot. What do you look at when you see their wing T offense? Are there similar elements of that offense that you guys use that you can key in on, or how do you attack Delsea's offense on Friday?
Well, they're under center wing T, old school wing T, like traditional wing T, but they have their own twist on it.
Mm-hmm.
They run wing T, traditional wing T plays, but they have the option element into it. Coach Deal, who was at Clearview for a long time, was a very big triple option guy, and he's been on their staff for a time now, and so he brings that aspect of his coaching resume to their team. And the quarterback at times you can't see him because he's squatted so far down low, his rear end's almost hitting the grass, and his face mask is barely above the center's rear end. And he's dangerous, because a lot of times when he's pulling the ball in option, you don't see him.
Yeah.
And he's very quick, very fast. He's had several big runs we've seen this year of him just pulling the ball and taking off. And anytime a team runs option, it's hard because there's not many teams that run option, and it's very hard to simulate that in practice with your scout team and give your defense a good look. But there are some similarities with just formations to a degree. We're more in the shotgun running our spread wing T with our version of it, and they're more into the traditional with a little option element to it. But it's the same as everything. We just got to play assignment football, stay disciplined with it, and we got to make tackles. We got to do a lot better job than we did last week of just tackling people.
I would imagine it's the same thing when you look at your offense against their defense playing assignment football, considering they will see similar looks as well. They look at your wing T offense and they're like, yeah, we've seen this stuff before. Last year, we see it a little bit in practice. Their linebacker, Jaden Reyes, has almost 50 tackles this year. He's their leading tackler. Luke Van Alten, a big defensive end they have, also plays a little bit of tight end for Delsea as well. He's a force on the edge, 4.5 sacks. When you look at their defense, is it similar to how you described their offense, where we got to play assignment football, got to be able to get to get the edge blocks, make sure you get those runs to the outside, and simply just stick to the fundamentals here?
Yeah, Delsea's tough, man. They're well coached. You could see that they're in the weight room, just looking at them and their bodies and stuff. You look at their legs and stuff. And they play downhill on defense. They've moved their backers around a lot. They move their front. They run a couple different defensive fronts, so you're not sure always what you're going to get. Which is always tough from an offensive standpoint because some defenses kind of run a certain scheme, and sometimes you're able to attack that from an offensive standpoint. But when a team jumps into different fronts, it tends to cause a little bit more confusion of what you're trying to do. Like we said, we like this week, our thing is we got to block. Football, like I told the guys, it would have taken a gargantuan effort to beat Winslow regardless last week.
Right.
But when you don't tackle and you don't block, you're just, poking more holes into the dam. And that's what we really are concentrating on this week is tackling and blocking. And if we don't do either of them, then it's going to be the same type of thing. But I think we really have to do a great job blocking up front, taking care of the football against their defense.
Massive game in South Jersey, Group 3. You guys are 9 overall in the entire group. They are number 12, and as we've already alluded to, you guys are pretty much 4 and 5 once all the brackets get separated into Central and South. So looking like a home game against Delsea again next week for the playoffs. But again, that's why you have to play this first game first. So 6:00 on Friday night, we'll have the game on Cape Atlantic Live, as we always do when you guys are home at the Corral. So speaking of this game this week, Coach, it's senior night. You already mentioned going to the Doc's place, having a great senior dinner, just really honoring them, what they've meant to the program. So I will kind of open the floor up a little bit about these seniors. And, there's so many to count. First it starts with, John Franchini, who's been the starting quarterback for 4 years. You mentioned it seems like it's been forever because they've put in so many high leverage moments, including, he's been a part of all of these playoff runs. You mentioned, Jake Blum, TJ McBall, Nate Cashy, Andrew Gilman, Chase Hogue, I know who's banged up the other week, Luke Kerrigan, Colt Russo, Liam Kennedy. If I'm missing some, I apologize. But it seems like this senior class, as you mentioned before, with all the accolades, has been just so special to Mainland Regional Football.
Yeah, like I was saying to the parents last night when I was talking, I said, seems like yesterday when I was going to the youth fields to watch them play for the Cardinals, Sharks, and the Panthers, and going to watch their basketball games and the tournaments and stuff, and then having them in when we had an open weight room for the 8th graders that were coming in, and those guys being there, and then all of a sudden they're stepping on the field. And the difference with most freshman classes is several of those kids lettered as freshmen. They played meaningful minutes as freshmen. Johnny stepped onto the field first game of the season as a starting quarterback. Nick Kosko, same thing, starting kicker that very first week. And then you have guys like Gilman and Kennedy who both lettered also, on the team. And, they've had a lot of game experience, a lot of big game experience. It's been neat to watch them evolve over the 4 years, grow not only as football players, but very nice young men, great students. Several of them are going to continue their education at high-end academic institutions, which shows it's not just about the sports and athletics. They really grind it out in the classroom, and that's what's going to take them forever in life, But it's been a lot of fun, and meeting all these families, and every year is a different year as you go through it. But this group has been very special because you seldom get a collection of individuals, that many individuals, that make an impact in your program at such a young age. And believe me, I've been doing this a long time. We've had some young players play before their time, but usually as a sophomore, maybe as a freshman. But usually you took the lumps then, and you were trying to build something for down the road. And these guys came in, what do they do freshman year? They win a sectional title and go to the semifinal, and second year, next thing you know, they're winning a state championship, So, it's just been great. And it's kind of bittersweet in a way. Like you always want to see them move on and do better things, but at the same time, you don't want them to leave. It's been so great. And that's why we're really hoping that they go on another terrific playoff run to close out their football career.
So they'll be honored on Friday night, senior night. All that stuff is pregame, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, right before the game.
Yeah, I can imagine. You don't have to spoil it yet. I'm sure we have to wait, 5-10 years down the line. But there might be a few names that might be going up in that ring of honor from this senior class, and obviously the past 2 classes that graduated for sure. Yeah,
there's a lot of kids. Like I said last night, like some of the kids are their names are in the top of the record book.
Yeah,
and they still have some games to play. And obviously, with what they've accomplished individually as football players and as a team, obviously these guys are going to be recognized at some point in the future, whether it's the Ring of Honor, Hall of Fame, whatever it might be. But it's well deserved, obviously.
Mm-hmm. When you see the seniors approach practice this week, I'm always curious about this. Just being a former player myself, not to this level, I can assure you that. But that final week is always bittersweet. I know the playoffs are right around the corner, regardless of, if you're home or away next week. And so there's at least one more game on the docket, but is there a sense of this is it? And we have more football to play, but this is our last regular season game and nothing's guaranteed after this as far as, a deep playoff run or if we're back at home next week, so on and so forth. Can they sense that in the air, or is it just pretty much all business as usual?
It's business as usual for the most part. The kids are a little more, I think they don't realize things till after the fact. I think tomorrow when we have our walkthrough up on the game field, it'll hit them a little bit that could be the last time they're playing at Mainland. I think when we hit the following week, when we hit the playoffs, that's when you see things amp up because they realize this is do or die now. Like this either keeps going on if we win or we're over with, and it's always like kind of like gut wrenching and heartbreaking when you have that final moment out there on the field. And you just see the enormity of it all of a sudden weighs in on the players, They're all great kids and they're tough kids and all. And then when that final moment clicks off the clock and they realize it's over now, you see that emotion all of a sudden be brought forward. And, as a coach, you feel like a father to them and you feel for your kid, And it's always like just emotionally wrecking for our staff also, to see them go through that. No, hey, this is the last time I was able to coach you or watch you in the green and white, So we're hoping that doesn't happen for several more weeks right now. But it's a lot of fun. When you get to this time of the year, this is what you sweat in the summer for. This is why you're in the weight room at 5:30 in the morning. it's for an opportunity like this that's coming up to, have a chance to have home playoff games and to continue doing something that other people haven't.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'll leave you here with this one, and you triggered something a little bit when you mentioned how, you were looking at them when they were, playing in middle school, they're playing for Northfield, Linwood, Summers Point, so on and so forth. Then they get on to the high school field as freshmen, and some of these guys, ready or not, they're going in there, and then they proved they were ready, and they proved they were able to contribute right away. I guess in the particular cases of John Franchini and Nate Cashy, a quarterback and kicker respectively. Did you notice that either when they were playing youth football, or did you notice it, within the first couple of weeks of practice when they were freshmen? Like, this could be a very, very special group. Now, not to say that your senior classes are, everyone is special in their own way year to year, but did you know maybe when they were freshmen, or maybe it could have been sophomore year, that this class might be absolutely historic in the entire context of the program?
I thought, in all reality, when I was watching them in youth football, I thought, man, this group really has a chance to do something special when they get to high school, as long as they continue to develop. And you never know if kids have reached that maturity spot growth-wise and things like that. Usually they're still going to grow for the next couple of years and fill out and mature. But I'll tell you what, I remember still those guys walking in the weight room, and it seemed like everybody was 6 foot, at that age, at 14 or 13 or wherever they were, But yeah, and then when they got there, they showed that they could play, and they played, Gilman and Kennedy were playing meaningful minutes. Obviously Johnny coming in, starting a quarterback as a freshman, and Cashy kicking, they showed that in practice and then through the summer they belonged and they could play. And so several other kids played special teams during that time, and then they continued to mature and develop over the subsequent years as we went. And obviously that shows, what we did over the last few years. And, they were part of all that. There was a lot of other pieces that moved on during years, but they were still there for all that. And we're really hoping, they can continue to have a great exit here at Mainland.
Yeah, it could be one last special ride for this senior class. So Delsea on Friday, 6 p.m. at the Corral. That'll be on Cape Atlantic Live. We'll have the coverage of that game, and then we'll see what happens with the playoffs next week, Coach. So thank you once again. We'll see you on Friday, and this should be a nice end here to the 2025 campaign.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick. I appreciate it and look forward to seeing you Friday.
Absolutely. Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service.